So, what a day in the markets. January 29th. It was like watching two completely different movies at the same time. In one, you had this incredible story of record-breaking AI profits, and in the other, a thriller filled with trade war threats. We're going to break down which story won, and, more importantly, why.
Right. So this is the big question, the real head-scratcher of the day. How is it possible that markets, like Korea's, could be rocketing to all-time highs when at the same time you've got these huge geopolitical threats looming? It doesn't seem to add up. So what was the real force at play today?
And when you look at the numbers, the contrast is just stark. You had the KOSP hitting a new record and the KSTA jumping nearly 3%. But at the exact same time, the market was staring down the barrel of a potential 25% U.S. tariff, stalled trade talks, and confusion over Fed policy. It was a genuine tug of war between pure, unadulterated optimism and some really serious risk.
So where did all this rocket fuel come from? What was driving all that optimism? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Just two letters. AI. The artificial intelligence engine wasn't just quietly humming along today, it was absolutely roaring, and it completely rewrote the day's narrative.
Okay, let's start with the number that just jumps off the page, 20 trillion won. That was Samsung Electronics' operating profit for a single quarter. It's a number they have never, ever hit before. Just a monumental achievement.
I mean, look at that growth. We're talking about a jump of over 300% from the year before. Just incredible. And what's powering this explosion? It all boils down to the insane demand for their next-generation HBM4 memory chips, the hardware that is literally the backbone of the entire AI revolution.
And this wasn't just a one-company show. Not at all. This AI boom was lifting boats across the entire region. SK Hynix also hit a record high in operating profit. Over in China, Baidu crushed expectations thanks to its AI chatbot. And check this out. The new GPU maker Beer & Tech had its IPO in Hong Kong, and the stock doubled on its first day. This was a sector-wide tidal wave.
The report we're looking at for this analysis just nails it with this quote. It says the numbers were so powerful, so undeniably positive, that they simply overwhelmed all market concerns. The fundamentals were just too good for anyone to ignore.
Okay, so that's the good news. The really good news, actually. But, as always, that's only half the story. Because while that AI engine was roaring, some very dark clouds were gathering on the horizon. And we're not talking about small risks here.
Seriously, investors were looking at a pretty intimidating wall of worry, and most of it was coming from U.S. policy. The threat of a 25% tariff on Korean goods was very real, and the talks to try and avoid it had just stopped. Then you had the Fed holding rates, but the vote wasn't unanimous, which always creates uncertainty. And to top it all off, you had conflicting messages about the dollar. It was basically a perfect recipe for market anxiety.
So that's the big mystery, right? With all those risks, why did the bulls win the day so completely? Well, the analysis points to this fascinating idea called social mood. The theory is that sometimes a collective feeling, in this case optimism, becomes a force of its own. It's like a powerful current. The shared belief that we're all entering a brand new AI era created such a strong wave of positivity that investors were just willing to look past all the political drama. The mood itself became the main driver.
Okay, so that kind of gets us up to speed on what happened today. But the real question now is, what's next? Is this trend going to continue? Let's dive into the forecast for February and see what the outlook is for this ongoing battle between AI hype and geopolitical reality. Well, for Korea, the forecast is actually calling for this momentum to keep going. The Kospi is projected to climb almost 5% higher, but that really depends on two big ifs: continued strong demand for those HBM4 chips and some kind of breakthrough in the U.S. trade talks. The KOSDAQ is seen climbing even higher, maybe over 7%, based on the idea that money will start rotating out of AI hardware and into AI software companies.
Now, if we shift our gaze over to China and Hong Kong, the picture's a little different. The broader Shanghai market is expected to get a modest boost from government stimulus, but the real action, again, is in tech. The HTSC index is projected to jump over 8%, really fueled by excitement around new IPOs. And the real standout is Baidu. The forecast sees a potential upside of over 14%, all banking on the continued growth of its AI chatbot business.
All right, so you've got this incredible AI opportunity on one side and these pretty scary geopolitical risks on the other.
How in the world are you supposed to trade that? Well, this analysis doesn't just give you a forecast, it actually proposes a specific quantitative strategy to navigate this environment.
It's a really interesting three-part approach. First, you ride the AI wave. You stick with the core semiconductor stocks that are leading the charge. Step 2 is about defense. You protect yourself from those tariff and rate risks by using hedges, things like gold or inverse products that can go up when the market goes down. And third, you try to generate a little extra income by selling options on more stable markets, like Shanghai. So it's a strategy designed to capture the upside while still managing that very real downside risk.
So, after all that, what's the bottom line here? If you're going to remember one thing from today, what should it be? It really boils down to this. Today was a clear-cut battle between fear and fundamentals. And, well, fundamentals delivered a knockout punch. The raw power of those corporate earnings was so immense that it basically made all the political noise feel irrelevant. I love how the analysis sums this up with a really simple visual. Think of the AI earnings as a bright, powerful sun. The tariff risk was a big cloud, but today, that sun was so bright that it just burned right through the cloud, allowing the market to blossom into record highs. A clear win for innovation. And that, of course, leaves us with the million-dollar question moving forward. Technology won the battle today, for sure, but the war between innovation and politics, well, that is far from over. Can the incredible growth engine of technology consistently overpower the friction of geopolitics in the long run? That is the story we are all going to be watching.